I am 70 years old. From the outside, people would say I am a successful man, a big house, a career that stayed solid for decades. No shortage of money, no shortage of reputation. Everything looks right. But my 70th birthday was different. The house was still lit. The dining table was neatly set. There was no chaos, no tragedy. Only silence, a silence deeper than it should have been. I had everything except someone beside me that day. Not because I failed, not because I made some obvious mistake. I never went bankrupt. I never collapsed. And no one ever said to me, "You're trading the wrong things." Everything I did had a reason. Working more to secure the future. Coming home later because just a little more. Postponing a meeting, postponing a visit, postponing a promise, and no one objected. In fact, many people praised me until I sat alone on that birthday and realized something I had never dared to think before. Some lives don't collapse because of failure. They collapse because of very reasonable choices repeated for too long. I didn't lose people in a single moment. I don't have one day I can point to and say that's when everything went wrong. Year after year, I moved forward while my relationship stayed in place, then slowly drifted backward. And now I ask myself perhaps the same question for you. If success can make you this lonely, how do you know you're climbing the right ladder? At the beginning, everything felt normal, even something to be proud of. I didn't stay up late to avoid anyone. I stayed up late because my work needed me there. The first nights I came home late, I explained carefully that it was just this phase, that once this project was done, I'd have more time, that all of this was for the future, and I believed it. Truly, I brought work home onto the dining table, onto the sofa, eating dinner while replying to emails, listening to someone talk while thinking about unfinished tasks. It wasn't that I didn't care, I just thought I could care later. At that time, the relationships were still intact. Birthdays were moved to the weekend. Phone calls were postponed. A night out with friends turned into a familiar apology. Next time? Okay, I'm really busy. Let me finish this first. No one was angry. Some even encouraged me. They said I was trying hard, that this was what a man had to do to provide for his family, that sacrificing a few early years would bring long-term stability. I nodded because it sounded reasonable. I believed my family would understand, my friends would sympathize, that our bonds were strong enough to wait. And strangely, for a long time that was true. No one left, no one blamed me. There were no signs that I was trading the wrong things. But little by little, I was there less than before. Not because I chose to disappear, but because I always came last, after work, after schedules, after new goals. And at some point, my absence became normal. No more explanations, no more questions. I thought I was building a better life. Without realizing, I was living less and less in other people's lives. Then small things began to change. Fewer phone calls, shorter messages, stories that were no longer told to me first. Some things I learned later, some I never learned at all. No one ever said outright that they didn't need me anymore. They just stopped reaching out the way they used to. And I reassured myself that everyone gets busy, that this is normal for adults, that everyone has their own life. I still believed everything was fine because there were no conflicts, no arguments, no single day when someone walked away. Distance arrived very slowly, so slowly that I grew used to it. Until my 70th birthday. No one forgot the date. No one cancelled at the last minute. It was just that no one thought they needed to be there. The house looked the same as always, quiet, neat, and empty in a way that was hard to name. That was when I finally understood something I had avoided for years. I didn't lose people in one day. I lost them bit by bit over the course of my entire career, not because I didn't love them, but because I always thought I would love them after finishing this one last thing. And when I finally looked around, later had already arrived. After that birthday, I sat with myself for a long time, not to blame myself, not for loud regret. For the first time in my life, I faced my own feelings with no work left to hide behind. That was when I realized something very simple. The problem was never that I lacked acquaintances. I know many people. My phone contacts are still full, but those people no longer live in my life, not because they hate me, not because they abandoned me, but because I wasn't there long enough to become part of their lives. I used to think connection could be preserved by memory, that if you were once close, you could always return after some time apart. But I learned that connection needs steady presence, not only in big moments, but in very ordinary ones. I thought about it carefully. If you work too hard, you're exhausted for a while. Rest a bit and your body recovers. But losing connection is different. It doesn't hurt right away. It leaves a hollow space, and that hollow stays for a long time. I began remembering every small detail. Meals I skipped because work wasn't done yet. Meetings I postponed because another time. Moments I thought didn't matter, until I realized I no longer had the chance to have them again. There were promises I made too many times, so many times that others stopped expecting me to keep them, not because they didn't need me, but because they had grown used to my absence. What frightened me the most was not the feeling of loneliness. It was the realization that no one had ever told me I was living the wrong life. I was praised for being hardworking, for being responsible, for being someone who knew how to sacrifice for the future. No one ever stopped me to ask, "Are you sure you're sacrificing the right things?" And that was the most dangerous part. When you're going the wrong way, and the whole world is applauding, when you give up so much and no one warns you that some things cannot be bought back. People taught me how to succeed. They taught me how to set goals. They taught me how to climb higher every year. But no one taught me how to keep people close when I started moving too fast. No one said that success could thin out relationships. No one said that long absence would turn into a habit, and that one day you would no longer be the person others think of first. I don't blame society. I don't blame my work, because everything I did had a reasonable explanation. I just couldn't see the cost at the time. Now, when I look back, I no longer talk much about my career. Titles don't fill this room. Achievements don't sit down to have dinner with me. All that remains is one person sitting in a large house thinking about the years ahead, with questions I never used to ask. If success means having everything, then I succeeded. But if a full life means having someone to share it with, then I learned that lesson too late. And now this is no longer a story about a career, no longer about status or position. It's just one man trying to understand how he will live the rest of his life. As I sit here now, I'm not saying I'm unhappy. I still have my health. I still have a roof over my head. I still have everything I once thought was important. It's just that time is no longer guaranteed. I'm not here to ask for advice. At this age, I understand that some things can never return exactly as they were. I'm not asking for sympathy either. I only hope this story is honest enough that you don't have to learn this lesson too late. If today were your birthday, who do you think would come? Not who would text you, not who would remember, but who would actually be there. And if you're honest with yourself, what are you so busy building that you're slowly forgetting who I once thought I had plenty of time, that sacrificing a few years was fine, that I could make up for it later? But later arrived very quietly, and when I looked back, many people had grown used to living without me. If this story makes you think of someone you haven't called in a long time, someone you always say another day to, then maybe that's not a coincidence. You don't have to change your entire life today. Just remember, this success does not automatically keep people with you. If you want, share this video with someone who is chasing their career the way I once did, or leave a name in the comments, one person you don't want to lose just because you're too busy. I was successful, but on that birthday there was no one beside me, and I hope you won't have to sit where I am now to say those words.